Hello, everyone. It's very nice to see you here. We're just going to give like maybe 1, 2 minutes for people to join in. But thank you so much for joining already. To those who are here, I hope the weather is nice where you are, that you're not absolutely roasting. I'm based in Dublin. Caroline is in Ireland too, but I'm sorry I forgot where you were. We've been quite blessed with good weather, but not it's nothing in comparison to like the heat wave that the rest of Europe has. So we're having like the best of both worlds at the moment. Um, just to remind you all, first of all, this session is recorded, so all of you will receive a recording at the end. Um, the questions will be answered at the end of the webinar, so feel free to type them in as you go. I will pay attention to them and I will read them at the end in a chronological order. So you have two options to ask a question. You can type it here in the chat, where I just left a message, or you have an anonymous Q&A option at the bottom of your screen somewhere. If you ask a question through an anonymous Q&A, no one can see your name, no one knows who you are, but of course, if you type in the chat, the rest of the attendees can see you too. So it's up to you. I'll be checking both, and questions from both of those will be answered. As well as if you need to go earlier, that's totally fine. Just leave your question and you will receive a recording maybe in the next couple of days. Yeah. So that's it. Yeah, I could see someone raised a hand. Unfortunately, I can't unmute people. It's just a weird like setting we're using. So please use the chat for all questions or any information you're interested in. I'll be watching over the chat as well, and I'll be responding to kind of questions about Kara Connect and things like that if you have any. Okay, so I think without further ado, I'm just going to start with introducing our amazing speaker today. So Caroline Lawless is a fantastic coach. She is also mom to 3 children. She's a family carer for her 13-year-old daughter, who also has a rare genetic condition and a more recent diagnosis of autism. So Caroline works a lot with family carers, parents, and pretty much everyone looking to improve or maintain good self-care. Um, she does it through one-to-one coaching, workshops, and presentations. So with Caroline's personal and professional experience, she understands at firsthand what it is like to juggle work, parenting, and the rest of things in life that life can throw at you on a daily basis. And so this webinar today that we're hosting in July, the time when summer holidays have started probably for most people. Yeah, this webinar aims to support you to create a work-life balance that actually translates to real life. Um, Supporting you to feel present in your role as both a parent and an employee, and also ensuring to be mindful of looking after your own self-care. So this webinar will provide you with support that can be adapted to anyone's life. Because self-care should be a mix of small daily habits which help you to stay in good physical, mental, and emotional health, rather than regular interventions that have less of a long-term impact. And for myself personally, Caroline hasn't been with us for that long, but she's already been amazing to work with and incredibly professional. And I can confidently say that she's the best person to do this webinar today. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Caroline and I let her do what she's expert in.
Thank you so much, Paulina. Yeah, I'm actually here in Dublin too as well. So enjoying this gorgeous weather. And I think we've been really spoiled here. We don't usually get this lovely weather in Ireland. Usually as soon as the kids are on holidays, it's raining. So it's lovely to see the sun shining every day. Huge welcome to everybody here today, and thank you for taking the time, probably during a lunch break or time away from this lovely sunshine, to listen in to the webinar today. I hope I'll be able to bring you some really good help and support, advice, tips on how to balance that juggle of parenting, working, and trying to care for yourself. So today's webinar is, as I said, supporting yourself in both your work and your parenting role. how to manage your time. It's certainly not always easy when you're trying to, show up and work, you're trying to manage your time at home, and you're feeling or can have feelings that you're constantly behind. So we look at some time management tools and how we can improve on that, how to know what your boundaries are, and have a look at how boundaries can be have a really positive effect on your life once you've kind of put them into place and are mindful of, what helps you to get through the day. Self-care, which some of us, I think, sometimes feel like is a luxury, um, when it's really a necessity. So we look at some small sustainable self-care tips that actually stick and are easy. So it's not something, a huge, big change. It can be something that's really small and really makes a big difference. And then just the work-life balance of how to show up fully at home and at work without burning out yourself. So just a little bit about myself. I'm a mum to three, as Paulina mentioned. My eldest is 22, youngest is 13. I'm also a family carer to my daughter who has a rare genetic condition and a diagnosis of autism. So my life completely changed from being a working mum in a banking world to being a family carer. So it was a huge, big life shift, a lot of shifting in mindset and goals and things like that. But I really learned how self-care is so important and so central to how you perform in your daily life. So while it can be fulfilling to go out to work and have that piece of independence for yourself, the mental load can often build up so much that you end up feeling that you're burning out, you're not good at anything, you're not doing your best at anything, and it can really have a very negative self-talk on yourself. Being aware as well in this day and age, I suppose, social media has a huge impact on people's lives. When you're looking at somebody's social media page and comparing yourself to that, you can often feel, that you're not performing to your best. It's useful to remember it's only a snapshot. You're looking at somebody's, snapshot of their life, and you're, comparing that to yours. So just to be mindful that nobody's perfect. So summer can feel, I just put in here, summer can feel like a stress test rather than a holiday, with childcare meetings and trying to say, entertain the kids, find different things for them to do, and things might shift to a different routine with picking up from summer camps rather than school and stuff like that. Um, so why life coaching for me? As I said, my life took a huge big shift when I became a family carer. I had a lot of time out of work and felt that I had lost that independence and that part of me. So I went back and did a course um, to return to work for family carers, and ended up going and studying to be a life coach. So I offer a lot of support to family carers, parents, and just people looking to generally improve their overall self-care. So I always start my coaching sessions or presentations by just inviting everybody to arrive into the space, just to sit back in your chair, just for a minute or two. If you can, close your eyes. I know people might be at their desk and this mightn't be possible, but if you can, to just close your eyes or just focus your gaze downwards and to just focus on your breath. So just to take a couple of deep breaths in through your nose and slowly out through your mouth. As you breathe in, just think about all the things that you're leaving behind, that you've had to do this morning to get here today. And as you breathe out, just feel yourself being grounded, feet to the floor, shoulders relaxing. breathing in again, in through your nose, right down into your belly. And as you slowly breathe out through your mouth, just letting your face relax, your shoulders relax, and feel that grounding again into the chair beneath you. It can be useful at this stage to maybe set one intention of what you would like to get out of today's webinar. This short breathing exercise can be done anytime and can be really useful when you're transitioning from one thing to another. So from work to home, from lunch time to coming back to work, anything really. You can do it anywhere. You can do it, if you're traveling, well, obviously not if you're driving, but if you're commuting, you can, close your eyes. You don't have to close your eyes. You can just do the breath work, but it really helps to just focus on yourself, ground yourself, and just become present where you're at that time. So today we're just going to have a look at time management, boundaries, and work-life balance. So I just wanted to mention quickly here about burnout. So a lot of people can kind of feel like the burnout is, only something that is going to happen, if you're really, really sick, or, you're really at the end of your tether, if you like, with trying to balance everything. It's actually a state of chronic physical, mental, emotional exhaustion from the combined demands of work and caregiving that still persist after you have taken rest. So burnout can burnout come out as feeling like really exhausted after sleeping. So if you've had, even 8 hours sleep and you're still feeling exhausted and not refreshed, it can be as a result of burnout. If you're feeling emotionally detached from things and you just feel like you're kind of just going through the motions every day, that you're not really present, you're losing interest in activities maybe that you used to enjoy, like going to yoga or Pilates, or maybe just going out for a walk, meeting your friends, but you feel like you're just kind of losing interest in that. Um, it could be struggling to concentrate or make decisions. So in work, trying to concentrate on the task that you're doing, finding that you're, maybe going in, opening an email, not really reading it properly, getting on to the next thing, or struggling to make decisions. Headaches, muscle tension, and again, trouble sleeping can also be a sign of burnout. So, what you want to do is recognize these things before you end up totally burnt out and exhausted. So, just to kind of I know Paulina will be sharing the webinar with you afterwards that you can look back over. If you want to write down a few notes, you're welcome to. Just to notice these small things before they turn into something bigger. So time management obviously can be really helpful with managing your life. So it's really life management. And it allows you to have time for you and not to always say, well, when everything else is done, I'll look after myself. So you want to be clear of your goals and objectives in work and at home. Otherwise, you cannot prioritize anything. And this leads to stress, overwork, and mediocrity. So you feel that you're not really doing well. You're showing up in, a medium kind of way in both things. So this leads to stress. So something you can do to help this, to be clear of your goals and to set your objectives, is to do some weekly forward planning. So this can be really useful maybe to sit down on a Sunday evening or a time over the weekend that's good for you and plan out your week ahead. It helps to bring a structure to your week. It helps to actually, kind of put aside time for yourself. And it also helps to start putting boundaries in place of what you can and what you can't do. So if you pick a time, it could be a Friday evening, it's whatever works for you. Everybody's different. Some people like using an online calendar to do it. Some people use their phone. I use a calendar on my desk, old school, write down Monday to Friday and have that in front of my computer every day that I can check and see what I need to do for the next day. It's also really useful to tick things off as you do them, and that gives you that hit of dopamine that you feel, right, I've got that done, I've achieved something. Accepting help and also feeling comfortable asking for help. So a lot of people feel that, they have to do everything by themselves. They can't accept any help. They have to um, they have to kind of show up all the time and also can feel maybe a little bit uncomfortable asking for help. Sometimes in case the who you're asking might say no, and that kind of gives that uncomfortable feeling between two people. But it's okay to ask for help. And if somebody does say they can't, okay, that's fine. It gets easier each time you ask. Um, Also, another thing around accepting help is kind of awareness around, um, things mightn't always be done exactly the way you do them, but that's okay. You might, you know, do something different with the children. You might, pack the dishwasher differently. You might make different things for dinner. It's okay if things are not exactly the same. List making can be really useful as well if you're somebody that is, likes to take things off, likes to go down, through priorities and stuff like that. So when making a list, prioritizing obviously is really important. What's what needs to be done at the top. And you can actually go through a list with the 4Ds, which is really useful. So the 4Ds is going through your list and saying, okay, what do I need to do? What can I delegate? So delegating some tasks to others, so that you're not having this overwhelm of all the things you have to do yourself. Um, then defer. So is there anything that I can put off till next month, something that's not really important this week or this month that I can move to next month? And then finally, is there anything on the list that I can dump? Is there anything just there that I don't really need to do? And it's amazing the feeling of that weight lifted off your shoulders if you can actually see, okay, I've put these things in place, I have delegated some things, and now I only have 4 things to do instead of a list of 20 things to do. Decluttering your life. So cluttered space divides your attention and can keep you stuck in the past rather than moving forward. So this sometimes even clutter at home can have this effect on the mindset. So it kind of blocks a space for new opportunities. So you're holding on to this clutter in your life, and it's pulling away from your attention. So tidy space, tidy mind can make you kind of be more focused and looking towards the future rather than the past. And then that leads into learning to be present. So to be present in yourself and to be present in the moment. And it's not an easy thing to do because we tend to always be thinking what we need to do next, what needs to be done before the day is over, what needs to be finished this week. But actually learning to be present is really powerful and can help you to remain focused and basically get your work done. So boundaries is really around knowing what your limits are. So boundaries are going to be very different for everybody. Some people are really good at, setting boundaries, saying no. Others feel, they kind of say yes to everything at the time. They want to be helpful, they want to be appreciated, but they end up that they have so many things to do. They've said yes to so many things that they're finding that they have no time left for themselves. So practicing saying no can be really useful. Um, so when you get to know your limits, sometimes it can feel really uncomfortable the first time you say no to somebody. But there are ways around that. You can use the pause exercise that you can kind of, you can think about it. So, you could say to somebody, listen, I have a lot on my plate at the moment now, but can I have, the day to think about it and I'll come back to you this evening. So it gives you that kind of space to kind of think about it, to let the other person, you're not letting them down, you're not just saying no. So for both people, it can work. Notice your feelings around things when you might say yes to things that then afterwards you kind of feel, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Now I have this and this to do. So that will help you to recognize what your boundaries are. um, Setting your boundaries does take a skill that it's a skill that improves over time, and you will gain the confidence and power over your decisions after you see the positive effect that putting these boundaries in place has on your life. Um, Set realistic boundaries with your colleagues, and also kind of your home circle, if you like, so your family. And when I say realistic boundaries, I mean like communicating your work availability with your colleagues and your employer. So you want to be honest about what you can do. There's no point in coming into work and say you can work late every night when you know you have to be gone by 5 o'clock to collect the kids from creche or from daycare or summer camp or whatever that might be. So you need to be honest and communicate what your availability is. And if needs be, to be open with your employer, and if needs be to, say, discuss maybe flexible working options for a short time, so that you can support each other, because that mutual respect between employer and employee is really important. There's no point in trying to show up and do things you can't do, and then kind of your employer is not going to know this unless you communicate that. So you need to have clear boundaries and communicate these things effectively with your employer. Respecting your own needs and values. So life coaching can be really useful for kind of exploring what your needs and values are. So really looking at what values are important to you, what your core values are. There are some online little values exercises that you can do. So if anybody's interested, they can reach out afterwards, and I can send on a link. But that can be really useful to know what your values are. And I'd probably never done it before I had done the life coaching. So it can be really useful to know a little bit more about your values. So work-life balance, really difficult. So it's really showing up fully at home and at work. So some of the little tips that can help with this is to identify your top 3 priorities each day. And these are not like huge, big priorities every day. It's small things you want to get done at the end of the day. They're realistic. So, it could be that you want to, there is, 3 emails that you have to get off today in work. There is 3 pickups that need to be done today with the children. And I want to spend, an hour later on relaxing myself, reading, walking, whatever is self-care to you. Um, so another thing that can help is to create clear transitions when moving from home to work or work to home. So that you're, and especially if you have a job that's remote, this is really important that you have a set time where you turn off your computer and you're not tempted to come back in later on at 8 o'clock in the evening and say, I'll just check my emails and then get sucked into something that's going to take you an hour and a half to do and realize then it's, you're tired, you're worn out, you haven't had any time to relax. And that can lead to kind of forcing yourself to stay up later because you're yearning for that time just to have for yourself. So really important those clear transitions from home to work and work to home. Learning to be present and not perfect. So you always want to be focusing on progression, not perfection. So you're learning to be present. You can only do what you can do. So as mentioned before, preparing ahead. So having that plan of what needs to be done this week, and to keep going back to this and checking where you're at with that. Obviously, in a parenting and work role also, like things change all the time. So, you might have to move something forward, you might have to swap things around, but when you have that plan in place, you can be a little bit flexible and move things around. Again, beware of how you're perceiving others on social media. Nobody's perfect. You know, people could be putting up things about parenting and how wonderful it is, and that they're balancing a career, and it is only a snapshot of what they're doing. So, everybody's an individual. So, focusing on yourself again and your needs and your values is what's important when you do become a parent. So if there's any new parents here, um, a lot of things change. So your values change, your priorities change, your hormones change, and obviously responsibility. So it's a huge life shift. So you can there you can need a little bit of help trying to I suppose, to move into that mindset shift of, just being you and working and being that individual to having to care for somebody else, and to always have to think of somebody else. That can feel like really overwhelming at times. Um, when I was 24, I had my first son who was a preemie baby. So he was in the ICU for weeks. And, it was a real, it was just such a huge like mindset shift of, being responsible for this tiny, little human that needed so much care and support. So remember that and be kind to yourselves and remember that, this is a huge shift and a huge balance of, what you may have been used to before. Building recovery into your week so that that is part of your week every week, that you have time for you. It's not something that's selfish. You shouldn't feel guilty about it. It is a necessity, not a luxury. So by building that recovery into your week, each week, you're recharging, you're avoiding burnout, you're focusing on being present, and you're looking after yourself. So it should be part of your value system to mind yourself and look after yourself, because you can't be good for anybody else if you're not good in yourself and healthy. So the Wheel of Life is a coaching tool that can be really helpful to kind of identify areas in your life that you feel you would like to improve. So you can obviously change all of these headings on the wheel, and it can just help you to kind of see where you're at with things. So you might want to put in obviously your career, your family, friends. Some people put in finance, fun and leisure, or self-care. So the idea is that the center of the wheel is 0, and the outer area here is 10. So you're plotting along the line, whether you feel really satisfied with this part of your life, or if you feel really dissatisfied. Um, and you draw like a kind of a mark in the middle of the wheel, and then you join up all the dots and you see, what how smooth your circle is. Now, I don't think I've ever seen anybody fill out one of these where everything is that number, everything is balanced, because it's never going to be balanced. There's always going to be, one part, if you're working really hard, like your fun and leisure might be down a bit lower, but that's okay. You can reflect on that and you can say, okay, well, I'm working full time at the moment and I'm studying something. So I'm not going to be able to go out, every weekend and catch up with my friends. But as soon as that's finished, I'm going to improve that. So you reflect on your scores, and it's a good tool to just check in on and see over a period of time how you can improve. It can be an emotional exercise to do, because sometimes, when life is so busy, we don't really think about these things, and you're not really thinking about what's actually really important to you. And sometimes when you look at this and you've plotted in your scores and you realize, that one area that's really important to you as part of your values is really low, it can actually be quite emotional. So, just take care if you're doing the exercise. But it can also be really useful and a really positive tool um, to think of how you could just move the score up one. So if you have say a personal growth and you're at number 5, you're not looking at how you can move it straight away to number 10. So you're just looking at small little steps. Well, how could I just move personal growth up one? Do I sign up for a course? Is it education that I'm looking for? Is it like that I want to do yoga? Is something like that? Is it something for me? So just small little steps. So we're not looking to move things from 0 to 10, in a week. It's small steps of how could you just move it up one. And then you can check back in on that, say every 3 months, and review how you're getting on. Um, it can be another really useful tool in a coaching session to work with a coach through this to see how you have moved forward and reflect on how you're doing. So a little bit about stress. So stress is it's a part of everyday life. Everybody experiences it, but everybody experiences it in a different way. Certain things that stress one person are not going to stress other people in the same way. So the definition is the perceived imbalance between our ability to cope and the demands that we face. So stress is a reaction in our body to excessive pressure or demands placed on us, and they come about when you have a feeling that you can't cope. So as I said, stress looks different for everybody. And because of this, it can lead to a lack of support. So if you're confiding in somebody and you're telling them how stressed you are about something and you're looking for a bit of support from them, if that person you're speaking to doesn't find something like that stressful, it can lead to a bit of lack of support, because the person mightn't necessarily have the empathy to understand, okay, well, this person obviously, is being really affected by this. So when that lack of support is there, that can cause even more stress, because you're feeling, you're not heard, you're feeling, let down, you're feeling isolated. So it can make you feel even worse if that lack of support is there. Um, Stress is created from within, so feels different for everybody. Um, the quality of our interaction with the stressor, so whatever is stressing us out, determines the level of the stress involved. So I've just put in here, it's easy to remember, S plus R equals E. So it's the stimulus plus the response equals our experience. So if something is stressing you out, your reaction to that stress is going to equal the outcome. So your experience of how you react to something is going to be how you feel. So if you can recognize that when something stresses you out, instead of going from 1 to 100 and thinking what you're going to do, step back, pause, think about it. If you have time to write things down, if you can reflect, that will give you a better experience. So that reaction. Um, Sources of stress, everyday life events. There's the stress everywhere. Unexpected life events, which are obviously more of a stressor, something that's unexpected, and it can be a really high level of stress rather than something, say, that's accumulating. And then personality traits. Some people, are more success. Um, some people are more likely to suffer from stress than others. Some people are more laid back. So some people's personality can be at the core of that reason why they're feeling stressed. Um, so like the S plus or equals E, the perception of the event will determine how we deal with it. And like we tend to deal with these things like we have done in the past. So we'll automatically think about something maybe that has happened to us before, and we'll automatically just go and deal with it the same way instead of just taking a step back and thinking, if I react to this in this way, what's the experience? It can be a really useful for children as well, the stimulus if they're misbehaving, or if they're refusing to do something, or they're having a tantrum, the way you react to that has a huge impact on the experience afterwards. So it's a really handy little tool to remember. So this, the life scope model of awareness, is was put together by the Irish Life Coach Institute, where I did my training. Um, so this is something that you could do after the webinar if stress is being an issue in your life at the moment. So it's just 9 questions, and it doesn't take long to fill it out. But it's a good way for people to just identify actually what the stimulus is. So, why are you feeling stressed? So, sometimes we're going from one thing to another, and until you actually sit down and talk to somebody about it or write it down, you don't actually realize what it is that's stressing you because you're just going from one thing to another. So it's a good exercise to do, and it identifies the stress. Number 4, the question, like, what is the worst case scenario? So, like, it really makes you think, okay, what is the worst thing that can happen here? And sometimes that question can lead to you feeling, actually, you know what? The worst thing that can happen here is not that bad. So, it immediately starts alleviating that stress. So that's a good exercise to do. And it's something that you can come back to and see if you're putting a different response into those stressors. Is your experience getting better? And it's a good coping mechanism. So where are you on the self-care scale? So self-care it means something different to everybody. For me, self-care is walking every day, is getting to the gym twice a week, it's having time to read, it's drinking enough water. So simple things. I used to think of self-care as, going to a spa for the day and having like loads of different massages and essential oils and all this kind of thing. But it's simple things that sometimes can go unnoticed in our daily lives. So if you just want to even think about, if you were to look at the scale there from 0 to 10, where would you place yourself now at this moment on that self-care scale?
You can absolutely share in the chat too if you want to.
Oh yeah, yeah, no problem. So self-care tips. So these are the basics when we're talking about self-care. So it's not huge. It's not taking a big 2 week holiday. It's something that's consistent. It's something that is easy to do. So the first one is drinking enough water to stay hydrated. And then the second one, mindfully eating healthy food. So if anyone here is like me, you can find yourself, you're running around, you're just, you're doing 100 other things, trying to eat your breakfast or, your lunch while you're working, but to try and just mindfully take even 10 minutes to just enjoy your food, to taste it, and obviously to be eating healthy food. So it's not something that you're doing while you're doing something else. You're being mindful, you're connected, and this can lead to better digestion and a more of a fulfilled feeling when you eat rather than just, it's something that like going through the motions, like we mentioned earlier on. Getting adequate sleep, which is extremely difficult for parents. And I know this because I had 3 children that didn't sleep. So really difficult. And I wish at the time I had taken the advice of when the child sleeps, you sleep. But, as parents, I think we all find something else to do when the kids are sleeping. But if I could go back, I would definitely take that advice now. If you can't get, if you are getting in interrupted sleep during the night, to even try and maybe get a time during the day where you can just sit and be still, and try and maybe do some of the breathing exercises, or some kind of relaxation technique for yourself can be really helpful. If you aren't getting through the, you're not getting sleep through all the way through the night. Um, so moving your body, so exercise is so essential for both body and mind. Again, it doesn't have to be joining a gym or doing any expensive classes. It can be just getting out for a walk every day. Sometimes you can get to the door and go, I really don't want to go for a walk. Tell yourself that when you get back and see what your mind says. You're never sorry when you go out and you have a nice walk. And start small. If it's walking you like, instead of saying, okay, I'm going to go and do a 2 hour hike and then say, oh no, I can't be bothered. Start small. I'm going to walk around the block. It's going to take me 5 minutes. You're nearly guaranteed when you're halfway around the block, you say, oh, sure, I'll just go on. I'll do my 20 minutes or half an hour. And you progress that way instead of setting your goal too big in the beginning. And then, of course, Pilates, yoga, swimming, all the things that you can do. Um, from a health point, regular blood tests are really important to keep your own health in check. And for women, I suppose coming towards their 40s, DEXA scan, really important. Um, I went for a DEXA scan after seeing a homeopath and ended up getting a diagnosis of osteoporosis years ago and was extremely young for it. Um, but like while it was upsetting at the time to get that diagnosis, I had the time on my side and have managed with exercise, eating the right food, and doing resistance training. Now that I've brought it back to osteopenia, so it's only the precursor, if you like, for osteoporosis. So really important to do things like that. If I had waited, another 10 years or 15 years to get that scan, it would have been too late and it would have been probably irreversible by that stage. So really important to keep your health in check and not be looking after everybody else first before yourself. So bumping up the basics, then practicing the pause. So your breath work, something like we did today. There's loads of apps, loads of things online, loads of YouTube tutorials you can do if you think you like breath work. It's really, really, really good for you to have that anchor. You always have it there. Your breath is always there. So no matter where you are, you can use that tool. Connection with your family and friends, keeping in contact with the people that serve you well. And this is really important to check in with yourself after you've made these connections with people to see how you're feeling. Do you feel energized after meeting these people, or do you feel drained? If you feel drained, go back and reflect on, how important and, how these friendships serve you. Because, as life progresses and people move through different stages of their life, sometimes the same people don't serve you in the same way. So that's really important. You don't want to come back from meeting people and feel drained. Journaling can really help. So brain dumping, just getting everything out of your head onto a page, can also be really helpful if you can't sleep. So obviously, if it's kids waking you up, that's different. But if it's that you just can't get off to sleep, and your head is racing and you've lots of things going on, the brain dump can be really useful just to get the stuff out of your head and onto a piece of paper. Gratitude journal. Gratitude journal can be really good for positive mindset. So, writing down three things in the morning that you're going to do that day, and then being thankful for, three things. So I used to always see when my kids were younger, the coffee was one of the things that I was very grateful for. So it was something that was on hand and something that always made me feel much better. And progression journal. So again, it gives you that, real that you're achieving something and you're moving forward. And be present. It's the only time that's real. Um, Small sustainable habits that stick. And watching the ripple effect of these habits. So, small habits like getting up 5 minutes early in the morning to have a bit of time for yourself, to have time to even have a shower, to make your cup of coffee, and to have that time out before work starts or the kids get up. Having that planner in place at the start of the week. The ripple effect there is, that you're better organized, you might have a free afternoon. You feel you're in control. So you're in control of what's going on, your boundaries are clear, you know where you're going, you know how you're moving forward. So learning what you can and can't control in self-care. So learning to say no, or sometimes yes. So sometimes, it's nice to push yourself out of your comfort zone and say, okay, well, actually, yeah, I am going to do that. Positive thinking, really good effect on self-care. If you're putting out positive thoughts, if you're positively, thinking positive mindset, your goals are going to be more realistic. You're going to be happier with who you are. And really important that the goals that you're setting are realistic so that you're not setting yourself up to fail. If you set yourself up to fail, it's going to just have like a detrimental effect on how you're feeling. You feel like you're not achieving anything. If you have a realistic goal, and you're meeting those goals, it makes you feel more motivated and, it gives you more positivity and energy to move on and then increase the goals as you go. You need to meet yourself where you're at. Those realistic goals have to fit in with where you are and your life at the minute. Investing your energy into positivity, and celebrating all the wins. So it's not just the thing at the end that you're celebrating, it's not just the goal at the end. All the steps along the way are really important. So, if your goal is to, go to the gym 5 times a week, if you've joined the gym, that's the first win. You need to celebrate all the wins. And that will have that positive effect on your thinking. It'll have a positive impact on your life. There's just a little diagram there of, what's out of your control and what's in your control. And if you're focusing on what's in your control all the time, it will have, a positive effect on how you're moving forward. Different types of rest. So again, it doesn't have to be a holiday where you're going away for 2 weeks. It's just, a time where you can take away from responsibility, giving yourself permission not to be helpful to others. I think as parents, or our work colleagues, you know, we're usually trying to be helpful to everybody else and, have that positive impact on people. But it is okay sometimes not to be helpful if you're tired and, you're at the end of your boundary. Essential oils can be really useful. They have lots of healing properties for different things. And they can, it's something that you can do at home and it can be really useful. Connection to art and nature. So even out for a walk, connecting, see how you're feeling. If you're out for a walk, how does that feel? Like, how do you feel when you come back? Or if you're, connected to art and stuff like that, if you want to, if you're visiting a museum or sculpt, how do you feel? How does that make you feel? Does it make you feel rested and energized? Or does it make you feel drained? Solitude and stillness. So it says here, exhaustion is not a status symbol. So, just be mindful of, how you're feeling and how you're going to energize yourself. A safe space is really important if you need to talk to somebody. Some people have great friends, peers, or some people will always have a coach or a counselor to speak to about different things. Alone time at home. So this is a real luxury that I rarely get, and it's actually lovely. And it's something that you well, I wouldn't have thought about, but it's actually lovely sometimes just having alone time at home. So you don't need to go off and go on a holiday, but actually just having alone time in your own house is really nice. Meditation. So this can take time to master, and it's not for everybody. But it's an extremely powerful tool to kind of slow us down, bring our focus inwards, again, using your breath as that anchor and something you can start off very slowly with a couple of minutes, and build it up slowly. And again, you can use it anywhere. It's really powerful tool. Um, so then I just wanted to say, did it take a couple of minutes to reflect on self-care here again, and just think about one thing you could do to move yourself one place up the scale. So if you marked yourself in as 4 on the self-care scale, what could you do to move yourself up to number 5? So making a goal like this, it could be to, have half an hour for yourself each week or each evening, whatever is realistic to you. So meeting yourself where you're at, setting a realistic goal and seeing what you could do to move yourself one place up the scale. So reflection is a powerful tool. So it takes time for new habits to become part of your everyday life. Once they do, they just happen and you forget what life was like before introducing those habits. But sometimes it's kind of hard to integrate habits into your life. Some days might go really well and some days might not, but just be sure to reflect on why a week mightn't have gone as well as another week. So something might have happened, the kids might have been sick, you might have been tired or, feeling overwhelmed. So do take time to reflect on um, what's been happening in your life, because looking back empowers us to move forward. So looking back at why you mightn't have achieved that goal last week, it's not just because you were sitting around doing nothing and watching TV. It's that all these other things happened that are outside of your control. So it's looking at that little diagram of what you can control and what you can't control. um, so it is a good tool to reflect back. Just a few little quotations. So when busyness is the measure of time, no matter how much time exists, it's never enough, which is very true. And you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. So really, whatever life is going to always keep throwing stuff at you. And that's out of your control. But if you learn to put in your boundaries and look after your time management, your self-care, you're surfing. So if anybody has any questions or, would like any further information or links to any kind of resources or anything like that, my email and LinkedIn and Instagram contacts are there. Um, I didn't put up a page of resources because, self-care and time, it's so individual to everybody. But if anybody does have any questions or feedback, I'd be delighted to hear from you. And thank you to Pauline and Kara Connect for having me here today. It was lovely.
Thank you so much for being here today, and thank you everyone who attended. And just before we move to the Q&A, a quick reminder that you can, of course, get in touch with Caroline personally, but also Caroline is available for one-on-one sessions through our Wellbeing hubs if you're set up with Kara Connect as a client. If you can't find Caroline, let us know, and we will fix it. But on top of emailing Caroline personally, you can also book a session through Wellbeing hubs. Now, let's move to the Q&A. There is a very interesting anonymous question
Okay.
that was asked when you were talking about burnout, actually. Um,
Okay.
it says, thank you. This description is matching me these days. Would you have any advice about how to spot when it's time to accept what's happening in life and when to keep striving and trying? Situation. I'm trying really hard to get a home for myself and my child, but keep being rejected by banks. Now I'm so tired, but afraid that if I stop trying, things might sink back even worse. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's a lot. And I think when you're trying for something like that, that obviously, means so much to this mom and for her child, or him, it could be a dad. Um, when you're coming up against this rejection all the time, it can be really difficult. It can really diminish your confidence, and you can feel just very isolated and stuff like that. When you're coming up against those challenges all the time, especially when it's something, that is obviously really personal and important to you. Um, Reflection is a good tool, looking back, okay, why you're doing this in the first place, why it's important. Also looking out to see, is there anybody else that can help here? Is there any other organizations that the person could link in with? Um, is there any support from like community welfare or anything like that that they could get? Could they say approach an advocate maybe that can help them? So obviously I'm not really sure of their whole situation, but sometimes to have somebody to even kind of like I know in Ireland here, at the Citizens Information Centre is really good for, say, having like supportive advice for things like this, for specifically housing, or if I mean, the banks can be so difficult to deal with. Sometimes if you have, say, an advisor or somebody that would be say represent you on your behalf to go in with you to a meeting like that, could be something that's helpful. But to I suppose for you and for your self-care to like acknowledge how hard you're working, acknowledge all the applications that you've put in so far and all the work that you will continue to do going forward for this, and to celebrate those things that you've done, and to see if there's any other support that you can get in your community to help you with that.
Thank you very much, Caroline. And yeah, the same, I assume it was the same person in anonymous Q&A said, thank you very much, helpful ideas there. And I hope that it's a tough situation to be in, and I don't know where you're based, but
Yeah,
especially if you're in Ireland, it's absolutely horrific here, and
yeah.
it's very tough to navigate. So I hope it will get better, and I hope it will get sorted sincerely. Um, I think we're kind of nearing the end of the webinar. I don't think there are any more questions at the moment, but if you do have questions later, because we're talking about such deeply personal topics,
Yeah.
you can always get in touch with Caroline or with us even, and we'll point you in the right direction. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here again, and thank you so much, Caroline, for a fantastic webinar.
Thanks
Um,
so much, Pauline, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Our next webinar, we're setting it up at the moment, is going to be on burnout, and it's going to be at the end of August. So watch this space. We will announce it soon. And thank you again for attending. And I hope you'll have a good day today and a fantastic rest of your week. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.